If you had told me, I would have helped you solve the problem. So, is there an error in this question? What do you think? What conditional is this? As soon as you have an if starting, immediately you should relate it to a conditional statement, right? If it's a conditional statement, is the form correct? Yeah, what condition is this? First condition, second condition, third condition, what condition is this? If you had past perfect tense, had told, right? And then would have helped. No error. Third conditional. She is one of the best mothers that has ever lived. Do you think there is an error in this context? Anubhav's question. See, let's look at quickly sentence construction forms, okay? When you have sentences starting with one of the, I know it has to follow a plural form, right? So, mothers is in the plural noun number following that construction, correct? We're comparing her with all the other mothers. So, taking the superlative form, the best, perfect. So, the form is correct in 1 and 2. She is one of the best mothers, right? So, for questions like this, both are correct, right? You always have to look at out of the mothers, out of all the mothers, right? We're comparing out of all the mothers who have ever lived. Now here again, we are signaling out this particular person, she, right? So out of all the mothers who have ever lived, she is the best. So having said that, yes, you have to change that to who and has to have. So the error is in 3. Or another way of looking at it is, you don't even have to have has or have. You can just simply say she is one of the best mothers that ever lived. You can delete has. That's another way of looking at it. But either way, the error is in 3. So you will have, you will come across sentence constructions like the greatest man that ever lived. Right? Just to put it down. No helping verb, has or have. He is one of the greatest judges that ever lived. So, let's look at the next one. Get this book, be published in time. Where do you think the error is? See, again, quick reference, when you say in time and on time, both are grammatically correct. Just the meaning is different, right? When I say in time, I'm saying within time. So, which means I have time to spare. When I say on time, I'm talking about exact time. So, when it comes like this, depending on the context, both are correct. Right? This is fine. When I say get this book, you want this published in time, which means you don't want to wait till the last minute. You want to do it within a particular time. So, in this context, in time is correct. I don't have to change anything there. There are 2 ways to approach part 2. Response is one part. You add the preposition to, which is missing, right? Get this book to be published in time. Or you remove be. But the answer is in 2. You can delete be, get this book published in time, or get this book to be published in time. Either ways is fine. I would go with part 2, remove be, get this book published in time. Makes sense. Yeah? Okay, even as the reverberations, I think this is a phrase substitution question. Near the small Gujarat town of Una. That's the highlighted phrase. Una, where? Okay, let's read. Even as the reverberations of the violence inflicted on a group of Dalit men by cow protection, vigilance near the small Gujarat town of Una were felt in parliament, the protests continued to spread across the state. Okay? Near the small Gujarat town in Una are, near the small Gujarat town of Una are, near the small Gujarat town. So, the only difference here is the prepositions, right? The verbs remain the same, are. It's either in, of or at. And then here it says was. So what can we quickly eliminate? I have to choose between the right preposition and I just have to choose between the right verb, subject verb agreement, right? Right? We also have to keep in mind the tense. So what can I quickly eliminate? I can eliminate D. Why? Because this is in the singular verb. But here the subject is the reverberations, right? So which means I need a plural verb. So I will quickly eliminate D. I have to choose between A, B and C. So is it near the small Gujarat town in Una, R, or near the small Gujarat town of Una, R, or near the small Gujarat town at Una, R? Yeah? So the Gujarat town, if you ask me, it belongs to Una, wherever this place is, right? So there are two ways to look at it. One is you can look at this thing happening at this specific place. In fact, what I would say is, right, in the context, whether it is are or where, in the context, the entire sentence is in the past tense, right? Even as the reverberations of violence inflicted continue to spread across the strait. And like I said, the town belongs to Una. So as a context, I don't see any correction as such. It seems absolutely fine for me. Even as the reverberations, which means the repercussions, the side effects or the outcome, right? Even as the reverberations of the violence inflicted on a group of Dalit men by cow protection vigilance near the small Gujarat town of Una were felt in the parliament, the protests continue to spread across the strait. So I will look at it as a context that doesn't need any changes. All of the prepositions in one way or the other is still correct, right? When I say in, I'm referring to a specific place. Yes, Una is the place. Of this particular town belongs to this place. At, again, we're talking about, but usually when we have places, we don't use at, we use in. So, but then again, I said in the context, it seems fine for me, and where as a verb also seems fine. These were felt. As a result, even if these were felt, the protests continue to spread across the strait. So I would go with no correction required. I have noticed that there are some rules that these boys typically follow during their semester, right? So I have noticed that part A, there are some rules that part B, these boys typically follow during part C, their semester, part D, and then you have no error. So most of you came back and said to modify a verb. When you read the sentence, you know follow is my action word, and obviously you don't need the adjective typical form, you do need typically, which is an adverb form to modify the verb follow, right? So I have noticed that there are some rules that these boys typically follow during their semester. So error is in part 3. So that is correct. Typical is an adjective, the explanation also is correct. An adverb is required. They're not talking about what sort of boys. The context is giving importance to a specific pattern that the boys follow during their semester, right? So understand the context and then you will be able to identify the answer. So I have noticed that there are some rules that these boys typically follow. This is something that is typical of them. In the nature, I can expect these boys to do this during the exam or during their semester, right? That's why.